Right, well, welcome everyone to today's monthly new feature webinar. It is our first one of the year in 2025. So welcome everyone. My name is Chinti. I'm one of the product manager here at BGL in the Simple Fund 360 team. And today we actually have Aaron Dunn, who's the CEO and co-founder of Smarter SMSF joining us today. Welcome, Aaron.
Thank you, Chin. Great to be here. The first one for 2025.
Yeah, it's how exciting. I felt like only yesterday I was just telling people Happy New Year, and then now we're in March. How crazy.
Yes, very much so.
All right, before we go dive into our content for today, just a couple of housekeeping rules. Today's session will be recorded. So at the end of our session, once the recording has been edited, all attendees or registrants will receive an email with a copy of the a copy of the slides as well as a YouTube link to our BGL channel with for today's recording. During the session today, if you have any questions, please type in the Q&A chat box. Today I've got five team members joining us today to help you out with any BGL questions that you have. So I've got Eric, Sid, Andrew, Jess, and Lynn to help you out during our session today. For attendees that haven't joined our new feature webinar before, this is our format. So I will be going through the new features that we've released since start of the year. Once I've finished covering our BGL side of things, and then Aaron would jump in and share with us what's happening in the SMSF world.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, Chin, there's a fair bit that's been going on. So we did a bit of a wrap up at the end of last year. And yeah, so January obviously quiet, but February certainly picked up. So to share an update with what's happening right across the sector, yeah, get people up to speed with what's going on.
Awesome. And I'm sure our attendees today will get a lot out of it. Yeah, and again, any questions during the session, please do type in the Q&A panel. So today I'll be covering the releases that we've done since start of the year. So we've done 2 releases so far, and our next release will be on the 20th of March, which is in 2 weeks' time. All right, first feature that I want to share with you today is BGL ID. For our attendees today, if you're not aware of BGL ID essentially is a service that provided by us for you to do client identity verification checks. You can use government-issued IDs such as passport, driver's license, and also Medicare card to do the verification. And during BGL ID verification process, we also do an AML check. We also do political exposed person screening, global sanctions screening, as well as adverse news screening. Now, if you do want to find out more about BGL ID, I've included at the bottom here a YouTube link to our webinar regarding BGL ID. You'll be able to find out everything you need to know about BGL ID. Alternatively, you can jump into our help article and search for BGL ID, and you'll be able to find out more information as well. Now, the feature that we've released is currently, actually, sorry, let me take one step back. Currently, BGL ID is integrated in CAS 360. Currently, it's not available in Simple Fund and Simple Invest 360 yet, but our team is working on it. But if you are currently syncing your clients and also context details between Simple Fund, Simple Invest 360, and also CAS 360, if you have done the verification, the ID verification in CAS 360, we will now bring through the status, the verification status into our 360 contact screen. So in here, I've got a little screenshot here to show you how it will look like. So when you go into the contact screen, if you look at your contacts tab at the top right corner there, you'll be able to see the status, whether it's verified or failed. Just moving on to the next feature, ABN validation. So now within Simple Fund, Simple Invest 360, we will now run an ABN validation against the ABR, which is Australian Business Register. During this validation, we will run a check on whether the ABN is active and also whether the GST status within Simple Fund, Simple Invest 360 matches back to the ABR database. The validation status, you'll be able to see it on your fund dashboard. And next to your ABN, hopefully you see a green tick. If not, you'll see a red cross. And if you hover over the red cross there, we will explain to you why it has failed the validation. I'll show you in 360 shortly, but this is where you'll be able to find the validation. All right, next up, we have consolidated reporting. Even though consolidated reporting is not a new feature anymore, but we have added a new report, which is investment report. Now, let me just jump into 360 now to show you. As mentioned, ABN validation is just located in your fund dashboard screen here. And in my case, I've got a red cross next to it. If you hover over it, you'll be able to see why, the reason why it has failed the validation. Some of the reasons you may see is that either the ABN is invalid, or in my case, doesn't exist, or the GST details doesn't match the ABR. Consolidated reporting. Consolidated reporting is located under your reports menu here. And under, oh, sorry, my mouse keep jumping. Report and under consolidated reporting. Now, once you're in the consolidated reporting screen, you will first need to select your group. If you haven't had have an entity group created, all you need to do is just click on the new group button and then select your related entities. But in my case today, I've already got one preset up. Today I'll be using bird family. And as you can see under my group here, I've got my related entities all selected and set up, good to go. Now the report is located under the reports menu here and under investment report. This is the new investment report that we have released recently, and essentially this gives you an overview of all the investment and all the investments for all the entities that you have selected here. Now, by default, you will see the period view. Sorry, by default, you see the period view, but you can always toggle to the entity view, and you'll be able to see the individual entities that you have set up under this group. Now, one thing that I want to bring to your attention is you are able to customize your report. So if you click on Edit Layout here, so you'll be able to customize the graph settings. But one thing I want to show you, which is I thought personally is pretty cool, is the period view column settings. You will be able to customize the columns accordingly. So by default, these are the columns that we have. So units, market price, market value, rate of return, and also income and market gain. But you can add, for example, if you want to see the income, you can add that column. And at the bottom here, as you add or hide the column, the preview will update accordingly. So while you're customizing your column, you can see whether the flow is right or whether it looks okay. If it doesn't, then you can switch around. And also, if you want to switch the order of the column, you can do so as well. For example, I'm going to change my return percentage to the third column here. You can see it is now updated. And if this looks good for you, then all you need to do is just hit the save button, and the screen will automatically refresh for you to have a look at your customization. I'm sorry, let me just go back to period view here. So same as two other reports, you will be able to also generate this report and download to PDF. All right, now jumping next to my next feature, which is open banking. Now, what is open banking? Open banking is part of the Consumer Data Right, or CDR for short, mandate from the Australian government to help promote competition and services for consumers. Now, the idea behind CDR is to give consumers the right and also the control to share their data with accredited services and providers to find better options to suit their needs. Now, how does open banking benefit our user? So, because all Australian banks or any bank, any institution that holds a banking license, they must comply to the CDR rules. Therefore, that means that all banks in Australia that holds a banking license will be able to support open banking, and which means for our BGL user, if you are using our open banking, you will be able to access to over 110 banks, whereas previously with our current BGL bank direct feeds, there is a limitation on which banks that we are able to get bank feeds for. Now, if your firm already have a bank data pack, BGL Bank Open Banking is included in the BGL Bank Data Pack subscription. In order to support open banking within BGL, we have partnered with Scrip, who is an accredited data recipient, which means that they can securely connect to the banks and institutions and get the data for BGL. Just a quick comparison on the authority process between our current direct feeds versus open banking. Now, if your entity is currently banking with different institutions, for example, ANZ, CBA, and NAB, for current direct feeds, you will need to generate 3 different separate authority forms for the respective banks, and you will need to send it to your trustee to sign and then return it back to BGL. But in comparison with BGL Open Banking, now it's all under one consent process. So same scenario, if you have banking with 3 different banking institutions, you can just go through one consent process, which allows Scrip to connect securely through API to the 3 individual respective banks, and we'll be able to get the data. Now, just wanting to highlight some of the benefits under open banking versus direct feeds, current direct feeds, is that we will be able to get more bank feeds from more institutions compared to our current traditional direct feeds. The authority process under open banking is much more streamlined, just one process. We will be able to get historical data dated all the way back to 1st of July 2018 under open banking. We will also be able to get closed accounts, which is pretty cool, and also other types such as term deposits, credit cards, and also loans. Now, one thing I want to just highlight to you is that credit cards, currently within our BGL software, we haven't handled credit cards just yet, but it is in the roadmap. So yeah, just you're aware if you want to get data for credit cards at the moment, it is not supported. Now, I mentioned that, we'll be able to get more data from multiple institutions now. I'm sure some of our attendees here have a question about NAB trade. Now, unfortunately, NAB trade is still not supported under open banking, but hopefully this will change soon. We are currently working closely with Scrip and also to see whether this is possible, but we'll keep you guys posted anyway. Oops, sorry. Let me just jump in 360 and then I will show you the setup of open banking within BGL. Now it is located under the connect screen and feed management. Now the scenario or the banks that I have today is Suncorp. Suncorp is one of our most requested feed as well. And now under open banking, you will be able to get Suncorp feed. And for any institution that we support for open banking, in the feed management screen, you'll be able to see that this little tag here that it is supported by open banking. Now, all you need to do is just go click setup, and feed provider by default, we've already selected BGL Open Banking Scrip for you. Now, under authorized data sharing, we have a little message here saying that non-personal bank accounts may require additional steps to authorize. Now, so this is a requirement from the bank where if that bank account is not held in your own personal name, there is potentially that there is an additional authorization step, which is the trustee will need to nominate a data representative to allow data sharing consent. Now we have included a link here to our help file. If I just quickly click into that, this is our help file where we detail everything that you need to know about open banking. Now, under supported institution pre-consent, this is where you'll be able to find out whether or not the institution that you want to sign up for open banking, whether or not they need that additional step. So if you want to if you want to sign up for open banking, just come into this screen here, this page here, search for the institution that you're interested in signing up for open banking and see whether there is any additional steps, and make sure that you bring the attention to your client who will be doing the consent process, because they will need to nominate the data representative. Now, so under trustee here, if you click on the drop down list, in this list here, we will filter this list based on your entity relationship. So if you already created trustee, already selected the trustees in the fund, then we will automatically filter those selected trustee that you have. If not, we'll bring up the full contact list where you can then search for your for the nominated data sharing representative. In my case today, I'm using Harry Potter. As you can see, I'm quite creative with my trustee name. Now, email and mobile number, this is automatically preview based on whether or not you have this information in your contact screen. In the scenario, if you don't have that information entered in the contact screen, you can always just manually type it in this screen. Now, the purpose of this email and mobile number, what happens is once you click generate consent link, the name, email, and mobile number will be sent to Script for registration purposes. What happens is that once the trustee, or in my case Harry Potter, once the trustee has completed the full consent process, they will receive an email from Script just letting them know that okay, they've started data sharing, and what the consent period is, and also in that email they will also have a Script dashboard link that they can access, which will allow them to amend or revoke or add any more institutions that they want to onboard to open banking. I'm just going to go click on generate consent link now. Now, this consent link you will need to share with the selected nominated representative because they will be the one that need to complete the consent process. And bear in mind that the consent link has an expiry date, a 14 days expiry date, and on screen we tell you exactly when the date is. Now you have a couple of options. You can either just copy the consent link and then paste it into your email app and send it to your client, or if your client is sitting next to you, you can just copy that link, bring up a new browser tab, put it into the URL field there, and then just go through the process together. Otherwise, we also have this option here to copy email template just for your use. Now I've clicked on view email template. This is the email template that we have available for you to use. In this email template, which is basically explain what is open banking, just a brief mention of Script, who Script is, and also we also include the consent link as well as the expiry date in the template for you. So you can just copy email link and paste it into your email app. So once you've done with this option, all you need to do is just hit the save button. And in the save button here, once you're back in the feed management screen, you'll be able to see the link expiry date display on your UI as well. Now, let me just quickly go back to setup screen. As mentioned, if you click on this pre-consent requirement, that takes you to our help article, which detail all the things that you need to know about open banking. And also, if you click on this little question mark icon here, we have an interactive guide for you. And I think there's like about 6 slides for you to go through. We just condense it down for you just so that you can very quickly learn about open banking. Now, previously I briefly mentioned that the data sharing period is 12 months. So something just to be aware that once your trustee has done all the consent process, and when Script start receiving data and send it to BGL, we will start feeding into your fund. When we start feeding into your fund, there is a data sharing period of 12 months, which means come approaching to the 12 months period, the trustee will need to go back either through Script dashboard or their own internet banking. They will be able to extend the period for another 12 months. Unfortunately, it is the CDR rules that currently they only allow data sharing for 12 months period, but there are some lobbying happening that we want to extend that period for longer. Okay, so that's pretty much open banking. Next up, I've got CFS Edge. CFS Edge is a new Reps and Platform feed, and it is a daily feed. And through this CFS Edge Rep feed, we will be able to receive historical data, including cash, investment, and income transaction, as well as cash and investment balance. So as part of cash, not cash, As part of the CFS Edge feed, we will be receiving text components, but one thing that you need to be aware of is that text components will not be auto refreshed. So when we first initially receive the text components, it won't be the finalized version. But once the text components are finalized, your advisor or even yourself, if you have access to the CFS Edge platform, you will need to trigger a data refresh in order for that for the finalized components to come through. This is currently the limitation, but however, we are working closely with CFS Edge to get this enhanced just so that everything can be automated going forward. Now to set up the feed is also located in feed management screen here. Under reps and platforms, all you need to do is just go click setup and then search for the feed CFS Edge, type in your Edge account ID, and also select the linked cache account for Edge for your Edge account. Do not import data before field here. If you have been manually entering your Edge transaction, we highly recommend you to enter the date that you've manually entered the transaction up to, because otherwise, as mentioned, CFS Edge do send through historical data. So when the feed activated, you may get duplicate transactions. So just make sure you input a date here. So we have the toggle on by default for import distribution components and also link holding accounts to feed. So once you've reviewed the top part, the bottom part is just the account mapping. So at the bottom here, it will list out all the investments that currently exist in your fund. And you will need to go on and input the portfolio code or the SMA code here in the screen. And that will then make sure when the feed starts, we will import the transactions to the relevant investment account or bank accounts for you. Once you've gone through review the account mapping, all you need to do is just hit the save button. All right. So next up, we have Smart Docs. So again, Smart Docs is not a new feature, but we have added the support and also now reading best statements. We're now able to use Smart Docs AI to extract key details such as GST and PAYG amounts owed or refunded from the best statements that you upload. And if you have the transaction already coded in your transaction screen, we will automatically attach that best statement to your transaction as well. So let me just quickly go into 360 and just show you. So to upload your best statement, it's under Reports, Documents. Let me just drag and drop my best statement here. So you can either drag and drop your statements, or at the top right corner here, you have the upload feature as well for you to use. Now let me just click upload. Just refresh the screen. All right, so it will take a couple of moments for the AI to read and extract the relevant information. Now, while waiting, you can go on. So it has, in my case here, it has automatically linked it to a particular folder. You can add the text, and also if I navigate to transaction, now, the AI actually has already completed extracting the data. So as you can see here, based on my statement, it has extracted that this statement is for the period of April to June, and also what the GST owing or payable amount is, and also the PAYG amount owing. At the bottom of the screen here, you can see there's two tabs: suggested transaction and attached transaction. Now, in my case here, it was able to identify my transaction and automatically attach it already, which is great. So our AI will, if it has high confidence that it has identified the right transaction, it will automatically attach it. But in certain cases, maybe the confidence is not as high, it will go under suggested transaction for you to review. And also you have the option to attach it if it has correctly identified. So let me just quickly hop out and just go into the transaction screen. So because previously I already have my transaction coded, and as you can see here, it is now already automatically attached it to my transaction. Now I do have just one last feature to show, which is reversal journal. So reversal journal is located under journal entry here. And when you do a general journal entry, you'll see in the right-hand side here, you have a reversing journal option. Now, if you have that option ticked there, you will need to put in your reversal date. By default, it will just pick up the next date, but otherwise you can always change the date to the correct date there. And the example that I'll be using today is, let's say, rent accrual. So I'm just going to go through and just put in my transaction. Let's say I've got 1,500 rent property income, and also I'll just chuck it under a rent accounts receivable for now, and just hit post. What you will see then is that this is the original transaction that you are entering, and we also posted a reversal journal based on the date that you have entered. All right, so that's reversing journal. And the last thing that I want to cover before I pass it on to Aaron is our roadmap for 2025, just something to look forward to. As mentioned, BGL ID at the moment is integrated with CAS 360, but our team is working on integrating BGL ID into Simple Fund and Simple Invest 360. We are working on a tax agent portal, which will be able to see all the tax agent related documents sync into 360. Macquarie bank statements, we will be able to also import. Something that we're currently working on is able to get the bank's half-yearly bank statements directly from Macquarie and import it into your document screen for you. Transaction recode, we will be extending transaction recode to member-specific income and expenses, and also allowing users to reverse the transaction recode. And lastly, income review. The team is currently brainstorming an income review screen where we'll consolidate all the income types into one screen just for easy reconciliation. So for example, your distribution, dividends, interest, and also rent will be all in one screen for you to review and reconcile. And that's pretty much my end. And Aaron, you're good to go.
I just need to turn my camera back on. Where's that screen gone? Sorry. Got one screen up here. Now I can see. So there we go. Good to go. All right. Well, let's move on. And I think I have control here, Chin. I do. Yep. Excellent. So as I spoke about at the very beginning, I wanted to give everyone a bit of a snapshot today in respect to what's been happening over the past couple of months. So we got to the end of the last calendar year, and there are a number of things that got finalised, and you can go back and have a look at that session where we spoke about things like gnarly measures, the objective of super, and so on and so forth. Now, the big item, of course, was the Division 296 tax measures. And at this point in time, they're not dead and buried, but they are a fair way along to that process. Ultimately, at this point in time, we still have 3 sitting days that would be available to be held, and they are between the 25th and 27th of March, where the federal government does intend on holding a budget. Well, I say does intend. They may yet decide to call an election. What's happening in southeast Queensland might naturally impact that as well at the moment. But there are 3 sitting days, in essence, that we would need to get through, noting that the last polling day that an election can be held is the 17th of May. So when we look at the parliamentary calendar, they are the last 3 days where these laws that are currently still stuck in the Senate would need to pass. And currently, or it was intended prior to the closure of Parliament in November last year, on the basis that it didn't fit into that guillotine measure at the time, they were to debate it on the first day back of Parliament, which was in February. Now, again, we saw the bill pulled from that Senate debate, pretty much on the basis that they don't have the numbers that they need from a 39 yeses they need in the Senate. They have 36 in essence locked in with the Labor Party and the Greens. But the independents, to get those three independents, they are voting as a block when it comes to this, and that block at the moment is voting as a no. So, as I said, it's not quite dead and buried, but fingers crossed. We are hoping for that early election, which basically gives that certainty. But if it doesn't, then we just need to kind of follow that bouncing ball through to around the 27th of March. Now, one of the things that I also touched on late last year was we were surprised by the release of some draft regulations to allow for the exit of certain legacy pensions. Now, we did have a period of consultation that happened shortly after that through November with industry, and then we got finalisation of those regulations that took effect from the 7th of December. And I'm going to touch on those in a little bit more detail shortly. The other two items that are just worth noting at this point in time relate to our caps. So one, our cap from an inflationary point of view, so our CPI figure, which was released in January, and that confirmed what we really already knew when it came to the transfer balance cap. And that is the December CPI figure of 139.4 was higher than what we needed, which ultimately means that our transfer balance cap from the 1st of July 2025 will increase from $1.9 million up to $2 million. Now, that naturally has an impact on retirement phase, so the amount that we can put into the retirement phase, but it also has an impact on things like contributions with non-concessional amounts and being able to utilize that bring forward period. The other part to the equation, of course, is wages. So our Awati figure, which comes out around the 22nd of February, I think it was, that it was released. And again, we were trying to work out, well, was the figure, the Awati figure, going to be significant enough? And it needed to be around 5.5% for it to get to the number that would be required for that concessional cap to increase. So it didn't. Our wages growth is obviously much lower than that figure at the moment. So our concessional contribution cap will remain at $30,000 for 1 July 2025. Just noting, though, that we would likely see, based upon the current position, we may then see that grow again from 1 July 2026. Noting our non-concessional cap is linked to our concessional cap. So we remain at 30. It also then means that we remain at 120. Which also means we remain at $360,000. So just understanding the ins and outs of when different caps increase, understanding what caps are subject to indexation and not. So our disregarded small fund assets, for example, is still a flat $1.6 million, as is something like our catch-up concessional contribution threshold as well. So again, just noting the differences there. And we do have that cap increase for the transfer balance cap from 1 July 2025. Now, let's sort of jump into these legacy pension regulations. And there'll be probably a mixed amount of people here that have clients that go back and have either market-linked pensions or defined benefits within SMSFs that are complying pensions. And complying pensions meaning that they were complying for pension RBL purposes or complying on the basis that they wanted to obtain some form of asset test exemption. So many of these are going back to pre-2007 and then potentially in the defined benefit space pre-2006. Now, one of the major concerns with the government looking to introduce the Division 296 tax measures is that there would need to be a valuation process in respect to these legacy products. Now, a market-linked pension is very easy because it's an accounts-based pension. It's dictated by the account balance each and every year. But that's not the case with lifetime complying and life expectancy pensions and even flexi pensions. And therefore, in the introduction of the Division 296 tax measures, it was going to mandate an obligation to determine a valuation each year. And there was discussion about whether that was going to be sort of based on a family law calculation. But ultimately, the industry has been pushing and pushing for some time to come up with a solution that would allow for the exit of these legacy pensions. So they don't really serve any purpose within the SMSF industry now. And this was an announcement in the 2021-2022 budget, but nothing had really transpired. So we've got what I would call fairly generous outcomes as a result of this. So it allows for the full commutation. So there's no sort of part commutation that occurs in these over what is in essence a 5-year period to resolve. So these regulations commenced from the 7th of December 2024, and we can exit these products in full, but we only have that 5-year time frame to actually do so. Now, the other part to this generous concession by the government here is that if we have reserves, and we may have reserves in the fund that are allocated towards those defined benefits, but we may also have reserves that may be sitting around from a legacy point of view, from anti-detriment or from self-insurance, things that really we haven't been able to do within SMSF since 2014 and 2018 in any event. But the way in which the allocation laws worked, it didn't really avail ourselves to wipe these reserves out through the concessional contribution cap framework. Now, what we have is a realignment of these allocation rules to the non-concessional cap. So rather than looking at a allocation that would be outside the fair and reasonable or 5% allocation rule, it is going to mean that we can, in essence, push these amounts out and have them not tested against a $30,000 cap, but have them tested against a $120,000 or $360,000 cap. Now, that doesn't have a 5-year period attached to it. It is, in essence, a permanent measure. So then the question becomes, well, if we have the ability to commute these pensions, what can we then do? And ultimately, we have what is available within the existing superannuation laws to do. And that is, we could start a new account-based pension with that money, subject to the individual's personal transfer balance cap. We could take a lump sum withdrawal out of the fund, or we could retain that money in accumulation or any combination thereof, but noting that that retention in accumulation is going to be subject to whether the person in receipt of that income stream is the primary pensioner or reversionary pensioner. Because if they are the reversionary pensioner, then it is a superannuation death benefit, and we have a different set of rules that deal with death benefit payments, which must be paid as an income stream or ultimately must leave the superannuation system. So there's no ability to roll that money back and leave in the accumulation environment. So there's a number of layers to this that we've got to work through, and probably the most important. So some of these defined benefit pensions that are still around, many of you will probably have clients with these, and they may be quite small balances at the moment, is the fact that they were receiving or are receiving still today a form of asset test exemption. So for a market-linked pension, it may be 50% asset test exemption. For some of these defined benefit income streams, it may be 100% asset test exemption. So one of the big issues that we are still waiting on from the government at the moment is what we call a legislative instrument that will deal with the debt waiver. So in essence, what that means is that because of the fact that we are introducing the ability to commute these pensions, Centrelink historically would be able to go back and claw back the entitlement that that pensioner has received. So unless there is a legislative instrument in place that would waive the powers of that to do so. And ultimately, that's what we're waiting for at this point in time. However, we have seen the Minister, Stephen Jones, announce that they will be putting that together. But at this point in time, we still are waiting to see. But there are lots of things to consider with this, whether it is asset test exemption, whether the value of that pension, because we might have clients that have market-linked pensions with $2 and $3 and $4 and $5 million. We might have complying pensions with $5 and $10 million. I've heard some unbelievable examples through people that are coming to us to look at restructuring in these, and therefore considering the defined benefit income cap and the tax exemption within the fund versus the fact that they'll get access to this capital, and understanding whether that pension is a pre-July 17 pension or there's been some activity that's happened thereafter as well. So lots to consider, and we've done a bit of work previously with a legacy pension session, and I'll be running a legacy pension session with probably Jeevan in the not too distant future on this as well. So what I wanted to share with people is we've done a lot of work in this space already, and Tim Miller, many of you may know, who's our head of education and technical, he was involved in this process with Treasury as well. But what we've done is we've built a hub within our document platform that provides you with access to a number of forms to avail yourself of these commutation requirements. Now, one of those things that we'll need to look at and consider is whether the ability to commute this pension can or cannot occur. The deed, we've had to make changes within the Smarter SMSF deed because we are now effectively commuting non-commutable pensions. So we need to incorporate powers into the deed to allow for these regulations to, in essence, take effect. And what we will also find is that the current deed that we have for many of these clients is not the deed that these pensions were established with in the early 2000s. And most of the deeds at that point in time were quite prescriptive in the way that they were drafted, and therefore the ability to commute in those circumstances would not certainly exist. Now, then what we've done is we've built a number of forms. So in particular, we know the market link pension ones are the most common within the SMSF landscape. So we have an online form fully integrated into Simple Fund 360 that will allow you to produce that commutation documentation, giving due consideration to all of those things that we spoke about, whether the pension is a cap defined benefit income stream for transfer balance cap purposes, or whether it's an account-based pension, whether it's for a primary beneficiary, reversionary beneficiary that impacts what they can do from a commutation point of view, understanding the powers within the deed, et cetera, et cetera. Now, we know whilst there are plenty of market link pensions in the marketplace, we estimate there's probably a best part of 4,000 or 5,000 of those. The amount of defined benefit income streams is much smaller. So in here, we're not necessarily going to be building forms to online forms to complete, but we have built a number of manual request forms to assist you after you have done some work with the actuary around the ability to commute and determining what those values are. Now, we're doing a lot of work with a number of actuaries in the industry to be able to support them and clients in that regard as well. And then again, we're doing the same similar thing around reserve allocations. And if you do have questions that you need to navigate through this, we then within this process have our Smarter Legal Review service. So we can undertake a review of the deed, maybe pension documents that are in play to ensure that there is compliance with those new regulations as well. And whilst you can access the Smarter SMSF documents directly from within Simple Fund 360, this hub we've got on our main platform, but we expect by the end of this month to have a version of that Legacy Pensions Hub also within our BGL documents platform there that will include things like checklists. We've got calculators. So we've done a specific calculator around the market link pension rules to ensure your minimums have been met and how you need to calculate the commutation value for T-bar purposes, et cetera, et cetera. So I just wanted to share with you just a couple of questions that we're starting to get. As I said, we've run some training on this. We're getting a lot of inquiries around this at the moment. So these are some of the things that we've been talking to people about. So, do I need to update the fund's deed to allow for the commutation, and why? And ultimately, it comes back to that comment I said before. So we have very prescriptive deeds when these funds needed to get the asset test exemption around that pension for the pension member. So we're looking at deeds, by and large, we're finding that there will need to be some sort of update to acknowledge these new regulations that will then open up the ability to do so. If the deed was broad enough back at the time, then in essence, what that may allow is for that commutation, but then you'd need to make some changes to the pension contract that may therefore allow again for that to occur. And so that's part of the process. We can help navigate through that and then help you to put that documentation together. The other one is, well, could I actually just use the commutation documentation that's in Simple Fund 360? Again, ultimately, that commutation documentation is built for account-based pensions, not for market-linked pensions. So things like T-bar, the asset test exemption, the primary versus reversionary pension details, powers of the deed, all those things naturally form part of what's required in here. So they are much more specific to the needs of the regulations that relate to market-linked pensions, and then equally the defined benefit pensions as well. And interestingly, given the age of these pensions, we end up with situations where people just can't find the documents. So in that situation, there are circumstances where we may need to, in essence, adopt a new set of rules for that pension, or we can simply just make the change to the governing rules, and then, in essence, we can do some form of adoption process, and then again undertake the commutation under that current deed that we would update. And then if we then need to, as I said, we could create a new set of pension documents if we needed to affirm and confirm that that pension was actually on foot. So there are plenty of machinations of ways in which these are structured because of the fact that they were either previously established for what was the old pension RBL purposes prior to 2007, or for the asset test exempt purposes as well. So if you do have any questions around that stuff, you can get in contact with us, and we'll be more than happy to help you to navigate your way through that. The other way that you may be interested to find out a little bit more about this topic is we have our upcoming Smarter SMSF Days. It is our 10th year, and BGL has been a partner of this event since day one. So they've been a wonderful contributor to the event over the entire journey. So we do have these sessions kicking off in Perth from the 20th of March. They go through to the 2nd of April there. You can see the dates up on the screen. We do have a coupon code that is available there for BGL clients. You can take advantage of that discount right now, and we actually have our cheaper ticket at the current rate before it goes to the standard price finishing this Friday. So you can take advantage of not only the cheaper price, but as a BGL client, take the discount off that ticket as well. So, but if you want to find out more, including the agenda, how the format of the day runs and stuff, go to our website, smartersmsf.com/SMSF day. So I think that pretty much takes me through to the end of what I needed to cover.
Cool, thanks, Aaron. And sound like a steal and deal because with all the cheaper tickets right now and also your discount code.
Yep.
And just looking at the Q&A panel, there's no questions, which is amazing.
That's good. So either I've totally confused people, or they don't have market link, they don't have defined benefits, or yeah, they're just totally confused, or I've presented it really well.
Yeah, either way. Well, I guess like for our attendees, if you do have any questions after today's webinar, feel free to reach out to either BGL staff member or directly to Aaron with in the Smarter SMSF
Yep.
side of things. All right, cool. Well, oh, okay, awesome. Well, I guess that's it then. Thank you all for joining today and have a great day, everyone. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.